Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Mi, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Today's video, we're going to talk about our favorite mossy-headed sword-swinging first mate. That's of course, Pirate Hunter, Roronoa Zoro. We recently made a video talking about the scars that Luffy has on his body from all the battles that he's faced on his journey to become the king of the pirates. So in today's video, we're going to cover the same topic, but we're going to go ahead and do this with our favorite right-hand man, Zoro. But before we dive into that, if you're new to the channel, we'd be absolutely honored to consider leaving us a like or even subscribing with a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content, and if you want to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing the video or the channel with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Roronoa Zoro, also known by his title of Pirate Hunter, is Luffy's right-hand man, and Zoro, along with his captain Luffy, and Zoro's rival, our curly-eyebrowed chef, form the monster trio, who are the three strongest characters among the pirates on the Straw Hat crew. During his journey to help Luffy become the king of the pirates and fulfill his own dream of becoming the greatest swordsman in the world, Zoro has ended up receiving several scars and strikes that have been hardy reminders of certain battles. So let's take some time to talk about how Zoro got all the various scars that he has, remembering that in the first character's look that Oda drew, we did see some scars that didn't end up getting translated to the animation or the manga, but the scars were still there. Now, usually authors tend to leave visible scars on characters only when they represent something significant in their main story. So now that we talked about that, let's check all the various scars that Zoro has been revealed to have. The first scar that we see Zoro earn was right after the saga started, where he had a fight with Buggy. This was during that early East Blue saga where Luffy and Zoro met Nami and of course Buggy. And after some events after that, there was a bigger conflict with this pirate and his crew. During the fight where Zoro was fighting Buggy, he lays down a huge attack and thinks that he'd just cut Buggy into several pieces and thought he had won. But of course we learn that Buggy was just tricking Zoro and he was using his Chop Chop Devil Fruit, which makes him immune to blades. So the pirate manages to pierce the underside of Zoro's right rib and does so without Zoro noticing. So he's the one, Buggy, who lands the first scar. The next scar we'll talk about is when Zoro was fighting Kabaji, but the events between the anime and the manga are a little different, so we're going to talk about both. In the anime, during the confrontation, Kabaji ends up stabbing Zoro right in the same, or at least near the spot where Buggy had pierced Zoro for the first time. But in the manga, it's a little bit different. Zoro, with his own sword, makes this wound, which leads everyone present at the moment to be surprised by his attitude, so Zoro acquires his second scar. Next, during the Syrup Village arc, Luffy and his crew were fighting Kuro and his group of once famous pirates. So Zoro alone was fighting Buchi and Sham, and seemed to be having a little bit of trouble in that matchup. At this point, we see that Usopp notices that his teammate is in danger, so he tries to at least be helpful to Zoro since he saw that he was really working hard to protect everyone else. But he actually ends up hitting Zoro in the back with one of his slingshot hits, causing his guard to stay open. And this allows Buchi and Sham to cut an X across Zoro's chest with their claws. Usopp then of course realizes that Zoro had let himself be hit by that attack, so Usopp and Nami wouldn't become targets. After that, two more scars Zoro earned were during his fight against Dracula Mihawk, of course the greatest swordsman in the world. So during the Baratie arc, we see Zoro come across Mihawk, and seeing that this was his opportunity to take on the greatest swordsman in the world, he challenges him to a duel. In kind of a way to insult him, Mihawk ends up using a very small blade that had been part of the cross around his neck, and he uses this to demonstrate the distance and level difference of skill between he and Zoro at the time, and that really he wouldn't even have to exert himself to beat Zoro. But after Zoro uses his most powerful attack against Mihawk and then realizes that all of his hits were doing nothing against him, he uses the Tiger Trap, and with that, Mihawk pierces the middle of Zoro's chest with that little blade. During that same battle, Mihawk starts using his sword Yoru because he realizes that Zoro's honor as a swordsman, and thus decides to cut him with this magnificent piece, one of the most powerful blades in the world of One Piece. Now Zoro at that moment was already full of wounds, and even so, he uses Sentoryu Ogi, Sansen Sekai. But when executing this attack, two of his swords are broken, and he is still wounded in the chest by Mihawk. At that moment, Zoro realized that he had already been defeated, so he turns his body to look Mihawk in the eye and receive his final blow, hoping that at least the best swordsman in the world would end his journey at that moment. Zoro said that a cut on the back of a swordsman was the highest disgrace, so Mihawk admired him for his attitude and makes another deep cut into Zoro's chest. but nothing lethal, just basically causing Zoro's defeat and yet another of his scars. The next scar that Zoro got was during a battle with Galdino, also known as Mr. 3, with his wax fruit. See, he was holding Nami and Vivi, and Zoro, seeing no chance to escape, Zoro decided to cut his own legs, scaring even Mr. 3. Nami of course asks Zoro if he really had cut his own legs, but Zoro replies nonchalantly that he just stopped midway, cutting only a little so that he could still move. But we saw that he actually cut some very serious wounds into his leg. Next, while still in Alabasta, Zoro fights Mr. 1, and during this combat, Mr. 1 turns his hand into a sword and it turns it and spins it like a drill. And as he lunges at Zoro, he pierces him with this powerful attack. And after Mr. 1 turns his arms into a sword, he then goes into an attack called the Super Breaker. Now this attack is capable of slicing from Zoro's left arm to Zoro's right arm, causing Zoro to lose a lot of blood, and in addition to that, leaving him almost unable to fight due to these injuries. Moving on to the Skypiea arc, while Zoro was walking around, Skybreeder Ohm, one of Enel's 4 priests, ended up attacking him with an iron whip and pierced his both arms, and the giant dog that Ohm was on top of also goes and attacks Zoro. But Zoro manages to dodge the dog's attack, and while he's dodging, Ohm quickly delivers another blow with his sword, and because Zoro was already moving, he's unable to move and avoid that attack, so the sword managed to hit his right rib. Now we go on to the Enies lobby arc, where Luffy and his crew are fighting CP9. In one of those confrontations, Zoro was facing Kaku, and after several sword blows that both managed to defend, Zoro is able to break both Kaku's swords. In a briefest of moments, Zoro gets careless, worried about what might be happening to Luffy, so Kaku uses his finger pistol technique and is able to pierce Zoro's body 3 times, hitting vital parts of his body and leaving him very wounded. After some other fights take place, Zoro ends up fighting Kaku again, and after transforming into his animal form, which he learns through a very recent eating of a devil fruit, he turns into a cube with Tekai Mushiku Kaku. Kaku then uses Rankakyu towards the ceiling and causes some small little blades to bounce off, falling like rain on his enemy, making the attack very difficult to block. Zoro tried as hard as he could to defend and send these blades falling in different directions, but they ended up cutting him continuously, and so without being able to do anything, he just stands there waiting for the technique to end. And after the end of it, Zoro's body was completely pierced and just shredded. The next on our list came at the end of the Thriller Bark arc, after Luffy and his crew were tired during the massive clashes that took place in order for them to defeat Gecko Moria and his zombie pirates. While Luffy was completely tired and full of his injuries, this causes the captain to pass out, but along comes Bartholomew Kuma, who starts using his devil fruit to test Zoro's resolve, and to try and figure out how far the swordsman would go for the life of his captain, Luffy. We next see Kuma start to remove all of the pain from Luffy's body and everything that he endured during the conflict with Moria, and is able to, with his Paw fruit, transform it into something like a bubble. By offering Zoro all of Luffy's pain, Kuma was able to find out just how far Zoro would be willing to go. Of course, our swordsman goes right towards Luffy's pain, and we see that Sanji tries to stop him, saying that he would do it for his captain instead of Zoro. But Zoro pushes him out of the way and says that he will take all the pain, and thus take that burden away from Luffy's injuries and took it on himself. And so Zoro takes everything and bears every single second and just keeps his arms folded, and we see that in that iconic of moments, we get to hear when he was asked what happened, he replies, "Nothing happened." After that, we have to move to the more recent Wano arc, where we see that Kid's first mate, the Supernova Killer, was out of control and started fighting Zoro and Onimaru on the bridge, and after a brief fight, he ended up wounding Zoro. With his scythe, Killer unleashed an attack that pierced Zoro's left chest, while he still presses the swordsman, increasing the wound even further and deeper. Of course, we also have the fight of Zoro against Kaido, where Zoro suffered a few hits from Kaido, but they were enough to still kind of get him a little bit badly wounded and out of combat, and having to be rescued by Sanji. And lastly, we have the fight between Zoro and King, a fight where we see King was able to cut Zoro several times and even pierce him using the powers of his own devil fruit. During this fight, we see Enma trying to absorb all of Zoro's haki, which makes his arm really weak and skinny. And at that moment, King saw an opportunity to attack him, and he pulls his head and attacks Zoro with an extremely strong and fast piercing attack. So with this attack, King is able to pierce Zoro's left rib. And moreover, with this blow, he almost throws the swordsman out of the place that they were fighting. So these, pretty much I think we were up to about 22, are all the scars that Zoro has been seen to earn so far. But during this great battle that's taking place in Wano, there may be even more wounds, and we still haven't found out what's going on with his whole Grim Reaper dream. So it's possible we could end up updating this video in the future. After all, we still know that there's a final battle coming, and we saw how the author of One Piece Oda says that the battle will be an incredible one where many powerful characters will continue to face each other, and the final confrontation will be greater than even the battle that took place in Marineford, or even bigger than the battle we've had so long with here in Wano. But at that moment, we'll see all of the Straw Hats. And also, Zoro, facing the most powerful enemies that they could ever face. And they're not going to be able to be defeated, because all of these times and all of these battles have always allowed Zoro all the more greater strength to overcome his enemies. But for now, I'd love to know what you think about it. Did you remember all those injuries that Zoro has already suffered? And also, what other characters would you like us to bring a video about talking about their scars or other things? Leave your opinion in the comments below. So as we wrap up, I want to thank you so much for watching the video all the way to the very end. Make sure you comment any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like or maybe even a subscribe as you head out to take on the rest of your day. Hope to see you on our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.